Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a single chapter of the Bible today, Exodus 19.
Hmm.
And it really is this critical intersection point. It's where the whole drama of God rescuing his people from slavery,
Hmm.
well, it smacks right into the terrifying reality of what it means to actually be in a relationship with him.
It's so crucial. This deep dive is essential because Exodus 19 is really the theological hinge for the entire first half of the biblical story.
The hinge, that's a great way to put it.
It sets the stage for the law, for the Ten Commandments, but it grounds that law in something much, much older and deeper, which is grace.
Right.
I mean, if you want a shortcut for understanding how grace, law, and God's nature all fit together, this one chapter is the blueprint. You can't really get the New Testament, especially a text like Hebrews 12, without first grappling with the fire on Mount Sinai.
Absolutely. So our goal here is to take you through this step by step, revealing these foundational truths. We've broken it down into three major movements. First, we're going to look at the very strange history and the absolutely necessary order of grace in the first few verses. Second, we'll wrestle with this paradox of a God who is both terrifying, but also beckoning us to come near.
Right, the push and the pull.
Exactly. And finally, we will uncover the ultimate meaning of the mediator that's required to bridge that huge gap.
Let's do it.
So let's start with what we're calling the history of grace, because the very first steps God takes here are just. They're so counterintuitive.
They really are.
The Israelites are freed from Egypt. They're promised this paradise, a land flowing with milk and honey.
The ultimate blessing.
And God immediately leads them in the opposite direction, straight into the desolate, mountainous Sinai desert.
That geographical detail is just astonishing. And it's a pattern, a pattern we often see in our own lives.
How so?
Well, you commit yourself to God, you trust him, you expect the blessing or at least a smooth path, but instead the road immediately gets harder.
You feel like you're going backwards.
Exactly. Farther away from the promised land than when you started. It's disorienting.
It seems so inefficient. I mean, logistically, why not just take them straight to the border of Canaan? Why this agonizing detour through a place that's even worse than their bondage?
Because the problem wasn't logistical. It was structural. It was internal. They needed so much more than just physical salvation.
Okay.
We can see this perfectly if we contrast two stories that happen in the very same place. Dothan.
Tell us about that contrast again.
So think about Joseph. He's sold into slavery at Dothan. He's this spoiled, arrogant kid, and he spends years praying in a pit, then a dungeon. And he gets nothing. Complete silence from God.
For years.
For years. Then, decades later, same spot, you have the prophet Elisha. He and his servant are surrounded by an enemy army. Elisha prays, and boom.
Chariots of fire.
Immediate, dramatic, visible, physical deliverance. Chariots of fire.
So why the huge difference? Why does one get instant action and the other gets decades of just agonizing silence?
Because Elisha was dealing with a surface threat. An army that just needs a simple military-style salvation.
Right.
But Joseph and his family, their whole system was poisoned. It was toxic with bitterness, jealousy, arrogance.
You can't fix that with a miracle?
You can't fix a dysfunctional, broken family with a lightning bolt. It requires deep character transformation. And that only happens through the suffering of the pit over time.
So the detour, the desert,
Yeah.
that was the process. That was God breaking their self-sufficiency, their arrogance, making them ready for grace.
Precisely. Their souls had to be saved from themselves before they could ever enter the land.
Wow.
And that's the ultimate pattern, isn't it? The way to the resurrection, to the new heavens and earth, is always through the cross, through the suffering, the wilderness, the desert.
That detour isn't a punishment.
No. It's the necessary history of grace.
Okay, let's shift then to the second part of this section, the order of grace. Because the sequence here is just, it's everything.
This is the absolute crux of the matter. The sequence is non-negotiable. First, you have the saving acts of the Lord.
Pure grace.
Pure grace. It's described as God carrying them on eagle wings. Then second, you get responsive obedience. Now if you obey me. And only third, do you get the blessing.
And that eagle wings metaphor,
Yeah.
it implies zero performance from them, right? No effort. He did it all.
He did it all. He saved them first. The message is, I've saved you, now obey me.
Not obey me and then I'll save you.
You cannot allow human nature to flip that sequence. The entire Exodus story, from the Passover lamb through the Red Sea all the way to Sinai, is the largest, most extended visual aid for the gospel ever planned.
It's the story of deliverance leading to the law.
Yes.
But isn't that the core struggle?
Yeah.
I mean, if grace comes first, why does the Bible, especially right here, spend so much time on the rules? It feels like we instinctively want to flip the script and make our obedience the cause.
Well, it's because law-based obedience gives us this false sense of control. The inner motivation is fear. It's, I obey, therefore I'm accepted.
And that kind of obedience is always self-centered.
Always. You're obeying to get things from God, better life, success, whatever. It's transactional.
Whereas gospel-based obedience is,
It's driven entirely by love and gratitude. It's, I am accepted, therefore I obey.
so you're not trying to get things from God.
You're trying to get God himself. You want to delight him, to please him, to resemble him.
And this kind of obedience, it leads to three incredible relational blessings. There'll be his treasured possession, a holy nation, and a kingdom of priests. Let's focus on that first one, treasured possession. What does that really mean?
The Hebrew word there is sigila. It was used to describe a king's private, personal wealth. The things they cherished so much, they'd keep them in their own private room just because they delighted in them.
So God is saying, you are my special delight.
Exactly. And obedience in this framework is just you seeking the will of the beloved because you want to delight him.
That completely reframes the idea of a holy nation. It's not a society built on performance.
It's built on delight. And it requires this radical internal change, what you could call gospel surgery on the ego.
Gospel surgery on the ego. I like that.
The ego has to be humbled by the knowledge of sin, and then affirmed to the skies by the status of a son or a daughter. And when your ego is sorted out, you stop worrying about thinking too much or too little of yourself.
You just think of yourself less.
You just think of yourself less because your identity is secure.
And the result of that is a totally different kind of community.
It is a community with candor, with comfort, with no pecking order, where money, sex, and power work completely differently.
Which is exactly the kind of life Jesus talks about in the Sermon on the Mount.
Precisely. And as a kingdom of priests, they're meant to mediate that reality, to display God's glory and grace to the rest of the world. The whole system is God descending. It's the exact opposite of those Canaanite ziggurats where people tried to build a ladder to go up and find God.
Okay, but if God's whole plan is so rooted in love and this unconditional delight, why does he immediately show up in such a terrifying way?
Oh.
Let's pivot to the sheer drama of this encounter. The visuals are just astonishing. You have thunder, lightning, a thick cloud, this loud trumpet blast, the mountain is trembling violently, and God descends in fire.
And that switch from the gentle eagle wings metaphor to this terrifying spectacle, that's not an accident.
No. He enforces these violent boundaries, put limits around the mountain. Whoever even touches it must be killed.
Right. Stoned or shot with arrows. The sight was so terrifying that, as Hebrews 12 reminds us, Moses himself said he was trembling with fear.
This is definitely not the warm, fuzzy image of God people sometimes prefer.
Not at all. His appearance to Job was a hurricane. To Moses, a blazing fire. So you have to ask, why the terror? It's not just physical fear. It's meant to trigger something we could call a self-quake.
A self-quake.
We all live in this deep denial of our own cruelty, our own wickedness. Our entire self-image is propped up by the belief that deep down, we're a pretty good person.
And encountering absolute holiness just shatters that denial.
It decimates it. Think about it this way. If a student whose entire identity is, I'm the smartest kid in my town, suddenly gets into an Ivy League school and realizes they are surrounded by true human superlatives, they often have an emotional breakdown. Their sense of self is traumatically reset if human greatness can do that.
Imagine the impact of God's absolute greatness, his holiness, his beauty.
It's crushing. It explains why Peter, when he saw a glimpse of Jesus' power, said, "Depart from me, O Lord, for I am a sinful man."
So the law itself becomes terrifying, even before the thunder starts.
Precisely. You know, when secular university students read the Sermon on the Mount for the first time, when Jesus says looking with lust is adultery and harboring anger is like murder, they often hate it. They call it absurd and unhuman.
They're feeling the terror of his holiness without any cultural filter.
Exactly. That's the hunter that C.S. Lewis talked about.
What did he say?
Lewis said people like an impersonal God, but they don't like God alive, pulling at the other end of the cord. The hunter. They get to a moment where the anesthetic fog we call the real world fades away, and they realize they never meant for their faith to come to that, to standing alone with his consuming holiness.
So how can this terrifying, consuming God also beckon? How do holiness and relationship exist at the same time?
Well, what's fascinating here is that God came not just in fire, but in a dense cloud.
The cloud, right?
And this cloud, which shrouds his glory, it wasn't there to diminish his power, it was there to accommodate him. He was making himself approachable.
Wow.
A sinner cannot survive his awful holiness, so the cloud is this visual sign of his love, his desire to live with his people, even though they were inherently unapproachable.
So the immediate problem of this unapproachable God needed an immediate solution.
It did.
And God orders Moses to go down
Yeah.
and warn the people not to force their way up the mountain, or many of them will perish. So Moses acts as this temporary go-between.
A temporary mediator, preventing death.
But that just raises the ultimate question of this whole chapter, doesn't it? How can a God of absolute holiness, who demands justice, also satisfy his desire to love and dwell with sinful people permanently?
And the ultimate answer, of course, is in the new covenant. We haven't come to the terrifying physical mountain of Sinai.
We've come to Mount Zion.
We have come to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel.
That contrast of two types of blood crying out is so powerful.
It's everything. When Cain killed Abel, Abel's innocent blood cried out from the ground for justice, for vengeance. It demanded payment, and that demand was righteous. Jesus' blood cries out the exact opposite. It cries out, grace, grace, grace. It says, accept them because I have already paid their penalty in full.
His blood speaks a better word because he is the ultimate mediator. He satisfies justice and accomplishes love at the same time.
Exactly. And the climax of that mediation was on the cross.
All the terror of Sinai.
All of it. The darkness, the judgment, the shaking, all the terror that should have fallen on sinful humanity, it came down entirely on Jesus. When he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? The ultimate barrier between God and us was removed.
And the physical sign of that was the temple veil,
Yes.
which served the exact same function as the cloud at Sinai. It shrouded the Holy of Holies to keep people from being killed by God's presence.
And by being shaken, judged, and forsaken, Jesus tore that veil and made the cloud obsolete.
So we are the temple now.
We are. Because Jesus was judged for us, we can live unshakable lives. And this allows for an intimacy and a joy in prayer that the Old Testament saints couldn't have even imagined.
But that access demands something.
It demands holiness, not out of fear, but out of an excited desire to actually become that new holy nation.
So the enduring lesson from Exodus 19 is that immutable order of grace. Deliverance by grace first,
Then obedience motivated by gratitude.
leading to the blessing of becoming God's treasured, holy, priestly people.
And since that veil has been torn, we have free access to God and are commanded to be that holy nation, a community where money, sex, and power have to operate differently. And this raises a really important question for you to explore. What aspect of your life are you still treating with the conditional fear of Sinai? You know, the if I perform this, maybe God will accept me kind of thinking.
As opposed to the confident love of Mount Zion.
Exactly. The mindset of I am accepted, therefore I will live this way. That's something worth exploring this week.